Stop for just a moment, because this message has found you for a reason, and what you're about to hear may explain the strange feeling that has been quietly following you lately. Somewhere at this very moment, your soulmate is standing at the edge of a truth they never imagined they would have to face. For longer than anyone realizes, they have carried something deep within their heart, protecting it with silence, convincing themselves that keeping it hidden was the safest choice. They believed that if they ignored it long enough, the feeling would eventually disappear. That time would soften the emotions they refused to acknowledge, and that life would naturally guide them in another direction. But instead of fading, those feelings became stronger, calmer, and impossible to silence. And here's what makes this moment so different from everything that came before. They are no longer trying to escape what they feel. They are trying to understand why those emotions have refused to leave despite every distraction, every passing season, and every attempt to move forward. Somewhere during a quiet moment, when the world around them finally became still, they realized something that completely changed the way they see this connection. What they have been hiding was never weakness. It was never confusion. It was never something meant to be forgotten. It was the truth they simply weren't ready to admit. Yet that truth has remained patient, waiting for the exact moment when fear would no longer be stronger than honesty. Lately, they have found themselves replaying conversations, remembering the smallest details, wondering why certain memories continue to feel so alive while so many others have faded away. Every answer they searched for seemed to lead back to the same place, the same person, the same unspoken emotions they thought they had buried long ago. Deep within their heart, they are beginning to understand that some connections are not meant to disappear simply because they remain unspoken. Some feelings continue growing in silence until they become impossible to ignore. And today, they can feel that silence beginning to break. They haven't spoken the words yet, but something inside them has already changed forever. The secret they have protected for so long is no longer asking to stay hidden. It is asking to be revealed, and for the first time, they are seriously considering what might happen if they finally allow their heart to speak. And listen closely. Because the silence your soulmate has been living in was never created by a lack of love. It was created by fear, and fear has a remarkable way of disguising itself as wisdom. For a long time, they convinced themselves that saying nothing was the responsible choice. They believed that keeping their emotions hidden would protect them from disappointment, protect you from confusion, and protect the connection from being damaged before it had the chance to become something more. Every time their heart encouraged them to speak, their mind immediately answered with another reason to wait. Maybe the timing isn't right. Maybe I'm imagining all of this. Maybe they don't feel the same way. Those thoughts became familiar companions, repeating so often that they eventually sounded like truth. But deep inside, another voice never stopped whispering, reminding them that genuine feelings do not disappear simply because they are ignored. They remain patient, quietly waiting until the heart grows too tired to pretend anymore. Your soulmate has reached that point, and they are beginning to realize that the silence they once trusted has become heavier than the truth they have been afraid to reveal. For months, perhaps even years, they tried to convince themselves that life would become simpler if they kept moving forward without looking back. They filled their days with responsibilities, surrounded themselves with distractions, and told themselves that enough time would eventually erase what they were feeling. On the surface, everything appeared normal. They smiled when people expected them to smile. They carried on with their routines. They continued building the life everyone believed they wanted. Yet beneath that calm exterior, there was always something unfinished. There was always a quiet question returning during the moments when the world became silent. No matter how busy they became, no matter how many new experiences entered their life, that unanswered feeling continued following them. It never demanded attention loudly. Instead, it waited patiently until another memory surfaced. Another familiar feeling appeared, or another ordinary moment unexpectedly reminded them of the connection they had tried so hard to understand. Because your heart needs to hear this right now. There comes a time when people realize they are no longer protecting themselves by remaining silent. They are only delaying the truth that has been waiting for them all along. Your soulmate is beginning to understand that every excuse they created was simply another layer covering emotions they already knew were real. Fear encouraged them to believe that uncertainty was safer than vulnerability. Fear told them that unanswered questions were easier to live with than possible rejection. But lately, something inside them has started challenging those beliefs. They have begun asking themselves a different question. Instead of wondering what could go wrong if they spoke honestly, they are beginning to wonder what they might lose if they never speak at all. That single question has changed everything because it forced them to look beyond their fears and toward the future they truly want. And listen to this. One evening, without planning it, they found themselves replaying moments they hadn't thought about in a very long time. Small conversations that once seemed ordinary suddenly carried a different meaning. A smile they barely noticed before now felt unforgettable. A simple exchange of words echoed in their heart, as though it had happened yesterday. At first, they tried to dismiss those memories as coincidence. They searched for logical explanations, convincing themselves it was simply nostalgia or curiosity. But every explanation felt incomplete because the emotions remained. The more they reflected, the more they realized those memories had survived because they were connected to something genuine. Some moments disappear with time, while others quietly become part of who we are. Your soulmate is beginning to understand that the memories involving you never truly faded because they were never meant to. As these realizations continued growing stronger, another truth slowly revealed itself. They recognized that the fear keeping them silent was no longer protecting their heart. Instead, it was preventing their heart from experiencing the peace it had been searching for. Every day they remained quiet, the emotional weight became a little heavier. Every unanswered thought became another reason to question themselves. Every opportunity they allowed to pass became another reminder that time continues moving, whether people are ready or not. They have started noticing how quickly life changes, how easily moments become memories, and how often people regret the words they never spoke far more than the words they did. That awareness has created a quiet urgency within them. Not panic, not pressure, but the growing understanding that some truths deserve to be spoken before another opportunity quietly slips away. Because your heart needs this right now. The greatest battles people fight are often invisible. They happen inside the heart, where hope and fear compete for the same space. Your soulmate has lived inside that battle for far longer than anyone realizes. Some days, hope convinced them they should finally speak. Other days, fear persuaded them to wait just a little longer. That emotional struggle has repeated itself countless times, leaving them emotionally exhausted. But recently, the balance has begun to change. Hope is becoming stronger than fear. Honesty is becoming louder than doubt. And with every passing day, they feel themselves moving one step closer to admitting what they have spent so long trying to hide. They may not know exactly how the conversation will unfold, and they may still wonder what the future holds, but one thing has become impossible for them to deny. The truth they have carried in silence for so long no longer wants to remain hidden. It is preparing to be spoken, and deep within their heart, they know that the moment they have feared for so long is now drawing closer than ever before. And listen to this, because something happened recently that your soulmate never expected, and it changed the way they see everything. It wasn't a dramatic event that the world would notice. It wasn't a conversation filled with explanations or a life-changing announcement that arrived overnight. Instead, it was one quiet moment that seemed ordinary on the surface but carried extraordinary meaning within their heart. During a peaceful evening, while everything around them had finally become still, they found themselves thinking about the past without even intending to. One memory quietly led to another. One feeling awakened the next, until suddenly they realized they had returned to a place they believed they had already left behind. They had convinced themselves for so long that enough time had passed, that life had moved forward, and that whatever they once felt had naturally faded away. But as those memories became clearer, they understood something they had been unwilling to admit. Time had changed many things, but it had never changed the truth living inside their heart. At first, they resisted the realization. They searched for practical explanations, telling themselves it was simply nostalgia, that everyone occasionally remembers meaningful chapters from their life. Yet the more they reflected, the more they noticed something unusual. Countless memories had disappeared over the years without leaving any lasting impression, but every memory connected to you remained vivid. They could still remember the smallest details, the emotions attached to simple conversations, the quiet moments that once seemed insignificant, and the feeling of peace that appeared whenever your presence entered their thoughts. Those memories had survived because they were connected to something deeper than ordinary experiences. They were connected to emotions that had never truly been released. And for the first time, your soulmate stopped trying to explain those feelings away. Instead, they simply allowed themselves to experience them honestly, because your heart needs this right now. Sometimes the greatest answers arrive when people stop searching for complicated explanations. We often believe that important truths must reveal themselves through dramatic signs or extraordinary events, but life rarely works that way. More often, the heart speaks through quiet certainty. It speaks through the memories that refuse to disappear, the people who continue crossing our minds without effort, and the emotions that remain steady despite the passing of months or even years. Your soulmate has begun recognizing those quiet signals, and each one has been guiding them toward the same undeniable conclusion. They are no longer asking themselves why these feelings continue returning. They are beginning to understand that perhaps those feelings never intended to leave in the first place, and listen carefully, because another realization soon followed. As they looked back over everything they had experienced, they noticed a pattern that had been hidden in plain sight all along. Every time they believed they had finally moved on, something unexpectedly reminded them of you. It could have been a familiar place, a meaningful song, a passing conversation, or even a peaceful moment when the world around them became completely silent. No matter where life carried them, the connection somehow continued, finding its way back into their thoughts. At first, they believed these moments were coincidences. Then they wondered if they were simply holding on to the past. But eventually, they reached a different understanding. Some connections continue returning because they were never fully understood. Some emotions continue resurfacing because they still have something important left to teach us. That thought remained with them long after the moment had passed, and it became impossible to ignore. As the days continued, they noticed another change happening within themselves. The fear that had once controlled every decision slowly began losing its strength. Instead of immediately pushing their emotions aside, they started sitting with them. Instead of searching for distractions, they allowed themselves to ask honest questions. They no longer judged themselves for caring. They no longer criticized themselves for remembering. In fact, they began realizing that the very feelings they had, considered a weakness, might actually be revealing one of the strongest truths they had ever experienced. That realization felt both overwhelming and strangely peaceful at the same time, because they were no longer fighting against their own heart. For the first time in a very long while, they were listening to it, because your heart needs this right now. There comes a moment in every meaningful journey when resistance becomes more exhausting than acceptance. Your soulmate has reached that very moment. They understand now that denying their emotions has never brought them peace. Pretending those feelings did not exist only created more unanswered questions. Every attempt to ignore the connection simply caused it to grow stronger beneath the surface. The truth waited patiently through every distraction, every excuse, and every season of uncertainty, until they finally became ready to face it with honesty. Now they are beginning to understand that real clarity does not arrive when fear disappears completely. It arrives when the heart finally decides that truth is more valuable than comfort. And listen to this. As these realizations continued unfolding, your soulmate found themselves imagining something they had avoided for a very long time. They imagined what life might look like if they stopped hiding from their own emotions. At first, that thought frightened them because honesty always carries uncertainty. There are no guarantees, no promises, and no perfect outcomes. Yet the more they imagined living honestly, the lighter they felt. It was as though they had been carrying an invisible weight for so many years that they had forgotten what freedom even felt like. They realized that whatever happens after speaking the truth could never be heavier than continuing to carry silence forever. That understanding changed something deep within them. It gave them a sense of peace they had not experienced in a very long time. Now they find themselves standing between two chapters of their life. One chapter is familiar, filled with hesitation, unanswered questions, and emotions left unspoken. The other chapter is uncertain, yet filled with honesty, courage, and the possibility of finally revealing what they have been afraid to admit for so long. Every passing day brings them closer to that choice. Every quiet reflection strengthens their resolve. Every memory reminds them why this truth matters. Deep within their heart, they can already feel that the moment they once feared is slowly transforming into the moment they have been preparing for all along. And although the words have not yet been spoken, the decision to stop hiding has already begun, quietly changing everything before a single confession has even been made. And listen carefully, because your soulmate has now reached the point where silence no longer feels like protection. Instead, it feels like a wall standing between the life they have been living and the life they know their heart has been quietly asking for. For so long, they believed there would always be another opportunity to speak, another perfect moment to explain everything they had been carrying inside. Whenever the thought of opening their heart appeared, they convinced themselves that tomorrow would be a better time. Tomorrow became next week, next month, and eventually another season of their life passed without a single honest conversation. But something has shifted within them. They have begun realizing that perfect timing rarely arrives on its own. Sometimes the right moment only exists because someone finds the courage to create it. That realization has been growing stronger every day. And with it comes the understanding that they cannot continue waiting forever. Recently, they have found themselves imagining the conversation they have avoided for so long. Not just once, but over and over again. They quietly rehearse the words in their mind, wondering how they might begin, wondering whether they will be understood, wondering if everything they have kept hidden will finally make sense once it is spoken aloud. Every possible outcome has crossed their mind. They have imagined acceptance. They have imagined uncertainty. They have imagined silence. They have imagined relief. Yet despite all those different possibilities, one truth remains unchanged. The emotional weight they have been carrying has become too heavy to ignore. They are beginning to understand that honesty may feel frightening for a single moment, but living with unanswered questions can feel heavy for a lifetime. Because your heart needs this right now. Many people believe courage means never feeling afraid. But true courage is something entirely different. Courage is choosing honesty even while fear continues whispering reasons to stay quiet. Courage is allowing the heart to speak even when the future remains uncertain. Your soulmate is discovering that lesson for themselves. Every day they become a little less controlled by fear and a little more guided by truth. They are no longer searching for guarantees before taking the next step. Instead, they are asking themselves whether they can continue living without ever knowing what might have happened if they had simply been honest. That question has stayed with them, and every time it returns, the answer becomes clearer. And listen to this. They have started noticing how different life feels when they stop arguing with their own emotions. Instead of pushing their feelings away, they have begun accepting them without judgment. Instead of convincing themselves they should not care, they have started admitting that this connection has shaped them in ways they never expected. It has changed their priorities, changed the way they understand themselves, and changed what they believe truly matters. Looking back now, they can see that every attempt to forget only strengthened the importance of what they were trying to leave behind. Some truths become clearer the longer we run from them. And your soulmate now realizes they have been running from one of the most important truths of their life. There is another realization quietly unfolding within them. They understand that the confession they are preparing to make is not only about expressing feelings, it is about finally becoming honest with themselves. Before they can speak openly to anyone else, they first have to stop hiding from their own heart. That has been the hardest part of this journey, admitting that the connection never truly disappeared, admitting that the memories still carry meaning, admitting that the emotions they once dismissed have remained steady through every change life has brought. Those admissions have not made them weaker. They have made them stronger, because truth has a remarkable way of replacing confusion with clarity, because your heart needs this right now. There comes a point where people realize they are no longer standing between the past and the future. They are standing between fear and honesty. One path promises temporary comfort but endless wondering. The other offers uncertainty but also the possibility of peace. Your soulmate can now clearly see those two paths before them. For the first time, they are no longer allowing fear to choose for them. They are beginning to trust the quiet voice within that has patiently guided them through every season of doubt. That voice has never demanded perfection. It has only asked for honesty. Now, as each new day passes, they feel themselves moving closer to a decision they once believed they would never be ready to make. The words they have hidden for so long no longer feel impossible to speak. The future no longer feels like something to fear. Instead, it feels like an opportunity to finally stop carrying emotional burdens that were never meant to remain hidden forever. They do not know exactly how everything will unfold, but they know this much with complete certainty. The truth they have been afraid to admit has already transformed them from within, and very soon it may transform everything around them as well. The confession is no longer a distant possibility. It has become the next chapter, waiting quietly for the moment when courage finally speaks louder than fear. And now, listen carefully, because your soulmate has finally reached the moment they have been moving toward without fully realizing it. After all the hesitation, all the unanswered questions, and all the silent conversations they have had within their own heart, something has changed in a way they can no longer ignore. The fear that once convinced them to remain silent has slowly begun losing its influence, replaced by a quiet sense of certainty they never expected to feel. They are no longer searching for the perfect explanation or waiting for every uncertainty to disappear before taking action. Instead, they have come to understand that some truths never arrive wrapped in complete certainty. They arrive with courage, asking only to be acknowledged. That realization has become impossible for them to dismiss, and every passing day strengthens their belief that what they have been carrying inside deserves to be spoken before another opportunity quietly slips away. For so long, they imagined that admitting their feelings would somehow complicate everything. They believed honesty would create problems they were not prepared to face. But recently, they have begun seeing the situation from an entirely different perspective. They now understand that the greatest burden was never the possibility of rejection. The greatest burden was pretending that their heart had nothing to say. Living with unanswered emotions has demanded more energy than speaking the truth ever could. Every day they remained silent. They carried invisible questions that followed them through ordinary moments, quiet evenings, and sleepless nights. They finally recognized that peace cannot grow where honesty has been withheld. That understanding has brought them to a place where silence no longer feels safe. It simply feels incomplete, because your heart needs this right now. There are moments in life when people stop asking whether they are ready and begin asking whether they can continue living the same way. Your soulmate has reached that exact moment. They have realized that waiting for perfect timing may have been another way of avoiding the truth altogether. Life continues moving, seasons continue changing, and opportunities quietly pass by, while fear promises there will always be another chance tomorrow. But tomorrow is never guaranteed. The future has never promised anyone unlimited time to speak what truly matters. That realization has awakened something powerful inside them. It has reminded them that meaningful connections deserve honesty, while they can still be honored, not only after they become memories. And listen to this. Over the last several days, they have noticed a calmness replacing the confusion that once surrounded every thought. This calmness is different because it does not come from having every answer. It comes from finally accepting the answer they have been avoiding all along. They no longer question whether this connection mattered. They already know that it did. They no longer wonder whether their emotions were real. They have accepted that they were. The only remaining question is no longer about their feelings. It is about what they choose to do with those feelings. That question has become the center of every quiet reflection, and each time they consider it, the same response continues returning. The truth deserves to be spoken. As they imagine the future now, they no longer see only uncertainty. They see possibility. They see the possibility of finally releasing the emotional weight they have carried for so long. They see the possibility of replacing endless wondering with honest understanding. They know that speaking openly cannot guarantee a particular outcome, but remaining silent guarantees only one thing: that they will continue asking themselves what might have happened if they had trusted their heart. They have grown tired of living inside those unanswered questions. They want to know where honesty leads, even if that path requires courage they never believed they possessed, because your heart needs this right now. Some of the most important transformations happen long before anyone else notices them. They happen quietly within the heart, where fear slowly gives way to acceptance, where doubt gradually becomes clarity, and where uncertainty is replaced by quiet confidence. Your soulmate has experienced that transformation. They are no longer the same person who believed silence was the safest choice. They have become someone who understands that vulnerability is not weakness, but one of the greatest expressions of inner strength. Every challenge they faced, every memory they revisited, and every difficult emotion they confronted has prepared them for this very moment. Nothing they experienced was meaningless. Every step has been guiding them toward greater honesty with themselves, and with the connection they can no longer deny. And listen carefully, because there is one final realization your soulmate wants to carry into this next chapter of their journey. They now understand that revealing the truth is not about changing the past. It is about honoring everything they have learned because of it. They cannot rewrite old moments or erase years of silence, but they can choose what happens next. They can choose courage instead of hesitation. They can choose authenticity instead of fear. They can choose to stop allowing uncertainty to make decisions that belong to the heart. That choice has already begun changing them from within, and whether anyone else realizes it yet or not, they are already becoming someone who refuses to hide behind fear any longer. So as this chapter comes to a close, remember this. The confession your soulmate is preparing is not simply a collection of words. It is the result of countless moments of reflection, personal growth, emotional healing, and quiet acceptance. It represents everything they have been too afraid to acknowledge until now. They have finally reached the place where truth feels lighter than silence, and where hope feels stronger than doubt. Whatever happens after those words are spoken, they know one thing with complete certainty. They will no longer have to wonder what their heart was trying to tell them, because they have finally chosen to listen. The secret they protected for so long has completed its purpose. It has transformed fear into courage, hesitation into clarity, and silence into the beginning of a completely new chapter. The moment they have been preparing for is no longer somewhere in the distant future. It is closer than ever. And for the first time, they are ready to let their heart reveal what it has known all along.